Welcome to the Vintage Hollywood Archive. Bergman, who was best known for her role as Ilse Lund in Casablanca, created an international scandal in 1950 when she had a son with the Italian director Roberto Rossellini, to whom she was not married at the time. Why was Ingrid Bergman cancelled before cancelled was a thing? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. The scandalous affair that saw Ingrid Bergman exiled from Hollywood. Ingrid Bergman, spellbinding, notorious. Bergman is remembered as one of the first natural actresses of Hollywood, adored and acclaimed for her performances. In the 1940s, Ingrid Bergman was one of the most revered actresses in Hollywood. With deep longing, America believed in the saint-like luminescence that the Swedish star brought to such iconic roles as vulnerable Ilse and the wife losing her mind to her sadistic husband in George Cukor's Gaslight, for which she won an Oscar. She was very elegant, a grande dame who had a sophisticated way of dressing. Whenever she walked into a room, she was the center of attention. But at the same time, she was very playful. She loved telling jokes. She would get down to your level and really enjoy your company. She loved cartoons and comedy. Ingrid Bergman represented the ideal woman. According to the St. James Encyclopedia of Popular Culture, Bergman's accentuation of her natural beauty earned her a reputation as the ideal of American womanhood. Representative of purity, wholesomeness, and sincerity, it was said that her balance of roles as a loving wife, responsible mother. She had worldwide admirers. Upon her arrival at what was once Idlewild Airport, now known as JFK International Airport, a welcome with a huge crowd warm was not unusual for Bergman. Often met with loving fans and sweet signs, people around the world cherished her as an actress and pop culture icon. Known for her naturally luminous beauty, actress Ingrid Bergman was born on August 29, 1950 in Stockholm, Sweden. Bergman experienced several major losses in her early years. Her mother, originally from Germany, died when she was only a toddler. Her father ran a photography shop and supported her interest in creative endeavors. She loved the camera, but had severe stage fright. Bergman's father took pictures and movies of his daughter until his death when she was 12. She was at ease in the make-believe and fantasy world of still and moving pictures. She was an actress way down deep all the time. But that didn't keep the butterflies at bay, particularly in plays. It was mostly a torture to watch Bergman perform in the theater. Before going on stage, she was suffering so much. She was so nervous. In her early teens, Bergman lost her father, eventually ending up in the care of an uncle and his family. Bergman began her acting career in her home country before breaking into the European film industry. She starred in a dozen Swedish films before eventually making her way to the US, where she would soon rise to fame as a new kind of Hollywood star. Her wholesome image, reinforced by early roles such as a nun in The Bells of St. Mary's, made her an international sensation. It was 1948, and the stunning 32-year-old Swedish actress had a virtuous, almost prudish reputation. She had played a nun opposite Bing Crosby in The Bells of St. Mary's and had just starred as the martyr saint Joan of Arc. Within the year, she would scandalize Americans by leaving her husband and bearing a child out of wedlock by Italian director Roberto Rossellini. Ingrid Bergman is still a Hollywood legend, even now many years after the actress's death. She's remembered today as a Hollywood icon, star of the timeless movie Casablanca. She often acted alongside other Hollywood greats, including Humphrey Bogart and Clark Gable. But it may surprise fans to know that Bergman's career was almost ruined by her personal life. In the early days of Hollywood, the public was pretty intolerant of scandal. That intolerance almost ended Bergman's career too soon when she had an affair with the Italian director. Held up as one of the big names of Hollywood's golden age, it's hard to believe there was ever a time when the Swedish-born star wasn't beloved, let alone a time when she was exiled from Hollywood or the US entirely. But that's exactly what happened when Bergman's biggest scandal hit the news in 1950 and almost killed her career for good. Bergman had 3 husbands throughout her lifetime. Her first husband, Peter Lindstrom, marriages to Italian film director Roberto Rossellini and film producer Lars Schmidt followed. But her marriage to Roberto Rossellini was different. It was an affair that rocked Hollywood. By the late 1940s, Bergman was a household name in the US and a massive Hollywood heavyweight, having even won an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in Gaslight. The public adored her for her natural charm and clean-cut image, but that would all change in 1950 when she decided to work with Rossellini. Bergman already admired Rossellini's film work and wrote to him in 1949 asking to work with him, leading to her being cast in his volcano film Stromboli. During production, the pair began an illicit affair, despite both of them already being married. In 1949, Bergman and Rossellini set off for an island off the Sicilian coast of Italy. They had already flown into each other's arms. Bergman was married to a Swedish surgeon, Dr. Petter Lindstrom, with whom she had a 10-year-old daughter, Pia. Rossellini was separated from his wife, Marcella de Marchis, but had had a public affair with the sultry actress Anna Magnani. Affairs weren't uncommon in Hollywood at the time, but the public was horrified someone like Bergman would be caught up in such a controversy. Though Rossellini had a reputation for sleeping with his colleagues, Bergman's virtuous image would be destroyed when the affair was discovered. They had a son before she obtained a divorce from her first husband. The affair was, of course, found out and splashed across the pages of newspapers and tabloids, along with an even juicier detail that scandalized America. Bergman was pregnant with Rossellini's child. In an instant, Bergman's reputation was destroyed. Her film offers, brand deals, and studio connections in the US disappearing in an instant. A scandal ensued. A US senator notably called her, quote, a horrible example of womanhood and a powerful influence for evil, end quote. And Bergman was banned in Hollywood. While the morals of the 1950s certainly played a massive role in Bergman's downfall, it didn't help that her film work had made the whole world view her as a virginal angel capable of nothing as salacious as the Rossellini affair. People saw in me Joan of Arc and declared me a saint. I'm not. I'm just a woman, another human being, Bergman would later say of the public outcry. Behind Bergman's pristine facade, she was ambitious, driven, and willful. She smoked, drank, and had affairs, as did many of her male co-stars, but women were held to different standards. Though she was a popular success, Bergman longed to make more serious work. For Rossellini's part, he hoped to capitalize on her tremendous box office draw. Neither quite anticipated how negatively the public would react to their unconventional union. With few options left for work in the US and little incentive to return to a public who now loathed her, Bergman chose to stay in Italy with Rossellini after the affair became public. She returned to Europe, where she appeared in Italian and French films, such as Europa 51 and Viaggio in Italia. During this time, she married Rossellini, and the couple had 2 more children, including Isabella Rossellini, who became a noted model and actress. As public whispers about her affair became louder, Bergman was forced to acknowledge the breakup of her marriage. The one thing she would have returned for was her daughter Pia, but Bergman's husband Petter Lindström made that difficult, refusing to divorce her for almost a year. A vicious custody battle followed, and Bergman's residence in Italy and effective exile from the US was used against her. She didn't see Pia for 7 years as a result. Meanwhile, even US politicians were speaking out against Bergman for, quote, glamorizing free love, unquote, demanding her films not be screened in the US. Her publicist released a press release in her name saying, "It was not my desire to make any statement until the conclusion of the picture I am now making, but persistent, malicious gossip that has even reached the point where I am made to appear as a prisoner has obliged me to break my silence and demonstrate my free will. I've instructed my lawyer to start divorce proceedings immediately. Also, with the conclusion of the picture, it is my intention to retire into private life." In fact, Bergman received her roughest treatment at the hands of the conservative Swedish press, where she was even accused of having tainted the Swedish flag. Ethnocentric overtones could also be discerned in the descriptions of Rossellini as the archetypical and sexually threatening Latin lover. Defense of her case, however, clearly articulated on feminist grounds and on the notion of a woman's right to love, could be found in women's weeklies at the time. Ingrid Bergman thus embodied partly the contemporary cultural war between the sexes, harassed by males and defended by females. Males were predominant in the quality daily press and women in the generally despised weeklies. Thus, the Bergman case came to become a part of the cultural struggle between quote-unquote high art, modernist literature and theater, and quote-unquote low art, Hollywood films in Sweden. The outrage was so serious that Congress got involved. A senator from Colorado slammed Bergman and proposed a bill that would protect Americans like her from lecherous foreigners. Obviously, no such bill was ever put down on paper, but the message was clear. Bergman was cancelled before cancelled was a thing. Ingrid Bergman was entranced by Roberto Rossellini before she met him. Shortly after filming Casablanca, Bergman started to get bored with the same old Hollywood style. She became interested in foreign films. She and her husband Petter Lindström happened to see an Italian film. Bergman was hooked. She became somewhat obsessed with the director. This was before the internet or even Blockbuster Video, so Bergman couldn't binge Rossellini's whole catalog, although she probably wanted to. But when she managed to see another of Rossellini's films in theaters, it was enough. She flew to Rome immediately to meet him. Bergman was cancelled before being cancelled was a thing. She would not visit America again until 1957. By then, the morality of the times was changing, and her career would recover. Bergman and Rossellini made a few films together, but none were successful in the United States. When Bergman acquired an annulment around 7 years after marrying Rossellini, she went back to Hollywood like nothing had ever happened. Nothing could kill Bergman's career, not even a scandal of this magnitude. Her career was effectively unkillable. When she wanted back in, Hollywood couldn't stop her. She returned after her annulment to star in Anastasia. As if to prove her greatness, Bergman's first role upon her return to Hollywood netted her an Academy Award, her second. It seemed like her time away from Hollywood did her good. Although Bergman had been bored before meeting Rossellini, after her return, she seemed reinvigorated. Bergman would continue to work right up until her death in 1982. She would win a third Oscar for her supporting role in Murder on the Orient Express. Bergman appeared in over 50 films throughout her career, even continuing to work after being diagnosed with breast cancer in the late 1970s. Bergman died in 1982 on her birthday, August 29th, in London, England, at the age of 67. With her at the end was her third husband, Lars Schmidt, whom she had divorced a few years earlier. Bergman left behind an array of wonderful performances. As for her daughter Isabella Rossellini, she followed in her mother's footsteps and became a Hollywood staple herself. Isabella Rossellini was born to make movies, and she made some good ones, including Blue Velvet, one of the best psychological horror movies of our time. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new here.